Hello, I missed you guys. You voted and here it is. Today we're going to talk about getting started with Zodiacal Releasing. Thank you for watching these uncut videos. I love you guys. Now, I have my laptop here with me because I'm gonna need it and you might need yours too. Zodiacal Releasing is a super advanced, super powerful, ancient timing technique in astrology. Zodiacal Releasing, the power of it, the insight you can gain is endless. You can go deeper and deeper and deeper. But today I want to talk about getting started. With that said, I will tell you I have been working daily with this method for 5 years and I feel like I have just scratched the surface. And I'm going to tell you kind of how I work with it on a day-to-day basis, but I also want you to know in the description will be some helpful links, starting with the Zodiacal Releasing calculator that I use. Also, a link to the initial podcast episode, which is a deep dive into Zodiacal Releasing on the Astrology podcast. That's what sparked my experiments with Zodiacal Releasing. And then I'm also going to put a link to the woman that I would consult if I wanted to know the most about Zodiacal Releasing or was looking for a consultation. The person I would respect the most, which is Leisa Schaim. And so I will link her website below. She seems to be, in my personal opinion, the subject matter expert. And she seems like a very sweet soul indeed. I don't know her, but she seems great. So, wow. So we talked a little bit about the Lot of Spirit and the Lot of Fortune in a recent Uncut video. And this kind of follows from that. So Zodiacal Releasing is based on the lots, and it essentially is a way of dividing time whereby it's, first of all, it's very highly specific to each individual person, and unfortunately if you do not know your birth time you cannot calculate this correctly. But if you are so blessed, and I do think it's a blessing, like if you are so blessed to have your birth time, then you can utilize this method. So essentially what it does is it calculates periods of time which are based on the ruling planets of the signs and their synodic cycle. And it divides a person's life into periods of time whereby certain areas of the chart light up or are highlighted during that period of time. And those areas become, well, it's like as if their potential is unlocked. It's as if like the whole chart exists, for example, and like the whole chart is your house. And during that period of time, you're given a key to the room that is a particular house or area of your chart. And you get to explore everything in that room, or you mostly spend that period of time in that room. So it's super, super interesting. Like if I was like a biographer or something like that, somebody, and I wish I was sometimes, if I didn't do what I do as a psychic, what I would want to do is tell people stories. Oh my gosh, I hope I get to do that. I actually got my undergraduate degree in, well, technically it's in scientific and technical communication arts. I worked with a lot of people that were studying film and seeing them do filmed interviews and stuff. Something about that just sparked me so much. This would be an excellent way of mapping an individual's life. And you can use it, this is an eerie method because you can use it to predict what will happen or when certain things will happen in a person's life, if you know what you're doing. But when you're just getting started, those sorts of predictions are not possible. It's so, oh my gosh, this is so uncut, you guys. But I'm just telling you the things that come to mind. So it's a way of dividing the life. And if you've already put your information into the calculator, which you may have done, you are probably like WTF. You know what I'm saying? You're probably like, WTF, Maya. What is this? So, if you're, I have it right here at my Zodiacal Releasing. So first of all, there's really only, there's a whole drop-down menu at the top under your birth information, and it says release from. There's really only two, if you're just getting started, there's really only two things to release from. And I'm gonna tell you what I've observed and what works, but I don't necessarily know why, okay? So releasing from spirit, releasing from the lot of spirit seems to predict the cycles and unfoldments of public life, professional life, career, external life, out there in the world life. So for me, it does show the cycles of my business. Something that's really interesting about this method is it actually reveals, this is such a powerful method. It actually reveals what the life is about. We make all these assumptions about why we're here. Even when we're woke, you know, like we make all these assumptions about what we're here learning. This method reveals, if you back engineer it, what is actually of meaning in an individual's life, what we're actually doing. So it highlights these periods called peak periods, which are the main, I don't know if you ever noticed that, like, what do they say, like, when it rains, it pours? Yes, that's true, because we have these periods which are peak periods, which mean that they're, I don't want to be too specific, but angular periods from the lot. So there's a whole way of calculating the charts using the lot of fortune as the first house, etc., or the house containing the lot of fortune, etc., blah, blah. And anyway, so if you look, like if I were just getting started, I would recommend choosing one of the following. Either release from spirit, like especially if you're someone that's very focused on your external life, you're trying to do something in the world, your career, and just focus on that, or focus just on the lot of fortune, which seems to predict major happenings in an individual's personal life, at home, family, and sort of the physical body. So it's sort of like an extroverted, like the lot of spirit seems to predict more like extroverted happenings. The lot of fortune seems to predict more sort of personal, introverted, physical body, personal life sort of happenings. I tried for a long time to just predict all of my life based on the lot of spirit. It did not work. I wanted it to work so bad because I wanted this method to be more simple, and I wanted to just follow one thing. And I found I did that for a year. It was a total failure. And so then now I'm almost a year into in concert. These are almost like, I almost hear like the Zodiacal Releasing as like music, and it's like a harmony between like the lot of fortune and the lot of spirit. That is the music of the life, like the periods. Sometimes they coalesce, usually they don't. But anyway, so choose one, right? Like if you're gonna test this method, choose one right now. Like, are you going to look either at the lot of spirit or look at the lot of fortune? Those are the two main ones. There's also Eros, which may or may not predict romantic happenings, but truly, I recommend, you're gonna do what you're gonna do, but I recommend a lot of spirit or a lot of fortune. And then you're going to see like this gray bar that says analysis, and it'll show what your lot of fortune is. And then it's gonna say L1, L2, L3, L4. And you might be like, WTF is this? Okay. Or you might be like, oh, I totally get it. Okay. But like, so you think of it like this. So level 1 periods, again, this is a person's life story. This is the life. So level 1 periods are like generational periods. Like, childhood, it depends on the planets that you're born under, which is super, super interesting, the periods of time. But it sort of designates like major periods of time, like early childhood, teenage years. It depends on how it's broken down, but it's sort of like that. within that, there are also, as we know from living life, there are other more measurable periods. Like, for example, there can be a period called childhood, but within childhood, there's infancy. So this is kind of more level 2. And then there's like toddlerhood, and then there's early childhood, etc., etc. And so that's what like corresponds to level 2. And then level 3 is more like, if we're looking at periods within those small periods. So like within infancy, there's like the first 48 hours, you know what I mean? There's like, I don't actually know because I'm not like a child development expert, but I do know there's like different phases of toddlerhood, and there's like different phases of the newborn times. Like some babies maybe don't open their eyes, or they don't move around much, and then they start to move, and etc., etc. And so that's more like level 3, like that level of detail. And then and that'll say L3, and then there's L4. And that goes down to the daily level and daily variations. So that's like if you were journaling, and some wonderful moms do this, you know, and it's, oh, my baby's first smile, you know, my baby's first giggle. It's like that level of detail. So depending on how you're looking at your life, you may want to look at different levels. But if you're getting started and you want to understand this method, or you want to use it, this may be an unpopular opinion, but we're uncut here. So I actually recommend looking at level 4 and working with L4. And if you're just getting started and experimenting, just ignore the rest. And to interpret the specific happenings according to the signs is a little bit too advanced for most people, probably. Like if you're just getting started. But so for example, right now, I have on the screen my Zodiacal Releasing from the Lot of Spirit. So this is career, professional life. I'm currently in a level 4 Pisces period. And this is from Fortune. This is actually my 8th house, which is interesting. I think about like a coaching session I did this morning. Shout out, like, you know who you are. And it was super 8th house. But anyway, for me, this is a cool down period. And that's actually what I want you to focus on with Zodiacal Releasing. So if you have this open, this is what I think has the greatest value if you're just getting started with Zodiacal Releasing, is probably like the most important insight that you can gain is simply knowing whether or not you're in a peak period or where you are in relation to a peak period. So right now I'm in a cool down period. For me, this is an interesting observation. The only times that I get like amazing sleep is during cool down periods. So from observing Zodiacal Releasing over time, these cool down periods come after a peak period. So I was just at my peak periods. They can vary what sign they are for each individual. Mine are Saturn ruled, and Saturn has the longest synodical cycle. So I have these periods of intense activity. Lots of things happen during peak periods. It can be super good. It can be anything. What matters is a lot of important things occur. And so for me, I just came off of like 12 days of like, wah, like intense. And it was a double peak period. So for my personal and professional life. And I loved it. I usually love peak periods because it's like, you can just tell like life is happening and destiny is being enacted. But by the end of them, I usually get really tired and I start looking at the Zodiacal Releasing and I'm like, oh my God, how much longer do I have to maintain this level of like, I don't even know how to describe it, but like this level of activity, this level of intensity. Because during peak periods, I don't get a lot of sleep. Like I get the bare minimum because there's so much life to be lived. And so it's like I'm up later and I'm up earlier in the morning and like my to-do list is like a million things, but it all truly is of value and it truly is important. And there's so much more communication and there's so many more projects and there's so much more things happening. And so for me, now granted, like my life is actually simple. So for a person with a more complex life or someone who has a lot of fame or the peak period, This could be major stuff. But we just know during peak periods, there's lots of activity. And after peak periods come cool down periods. And then comes what's called a build-up period, which is essentially like a preparation for the next peak period and then another peak period. So it essentially creates like a wave in your life. So some people practice, women, like cycle syncing and things like that, and they have like periods where they like work out a lot and stuff like that at a certain point, like at around ovulation or something in their cycle. And then they have a rest period and then a building period. Again, it's sort of like that, but it's, I was gonna say, but it's personal to you, but actually that is really personal to an individual, although I don't think of it that way, because in my mind, like every woman's cycle is corresponding to the moon cycle, but that is no longer true because most people are taking medications that affect that. But anyway, blah, 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 uncut. Anyway, this is another way, especially for men who don't have the cycles and rhythms in their body. This is another way to attune to the natural unfoldment on a more like weekly, monthly kind of basis. So essentially, during cool down periods, that's the de-stress time, that's the slow down time, that's the rest time, that's the reflection time, that's the do less time. Like people talk about like self-care or like treat yourself or these kinds of things, cool down period. Like for me during cool down period, I will go to bed earlier and I will let myself sleep in. And this is when I always read. I want to make one of these uncut videos and just show you guys everything that I'm reading, but I don't know if that would interest you, but I always read like a little. But during peak periods, sometimes I'm so exhausted, like I get in only a page or two and then we're done. During the cool down periods, I read chapters at a time. So this is like a different pace of life. It's more of, okay, the important things just happened. I find during cool down periods, it's more of just basic life. Like you go to work, talk to your regular friends, this kind of thing, do housework. That's not of particular importance. By the way, I want to say this method is always functioning whether you know it or not. So what's weird is like you can look back at your life, especially if you look at level 2 or level 3 and look at when the peak periods were, and you realize, oh my gosh, that's when I won that award, that's when I got that promotion, that's when I traveled, that's when I did everything. Those are the times. I was born into a peak period, and when it ended, I mean, that was a hard adjustment. Like, cause it lasted long enough that it felt like my whole life was gonna be like that. And I got like really used to that level of intensity, and then it wasn't anymore. So I kind of like miss it, cause actually I have so much more energy during peak periods. But anyway, so during the cool down period, that's when you wanna just like rest and not pressure yourself that much. And then energy starts to build. And that's when you want to think, okay, what are the main things that I'm working towards and what can I do now to prepare? So I think of the build-up periods as preparation periods. So like often if I see a build-up period, like if I'm in a cool down period, I just like, it's kind of like slow living or whatever, but like if I start building, see I'm in a build-up period again, I will start like meal prepping, make sure the laundry's done, like I have outfits picked out, like just make sure, I don't know, like all the covers are stocked, make sure I'm up to date with all my financial stuff, make sure I'm up to date with all my correspondences. I try to prepare by getting done things to free up time during the peak period. I'm getting chills, like, because during the peak period, life is gonna happen. And like occasionally I'll have like a really long peak period, like 12 days at a level 4. And like during one of the days it won't be too intense out of the 12, but like all the rest will be like require, like usually like I I'm at such a pace during peak periods that I can't even answer my phone. And if I can't spare, who knows what it could be, 2, 3, 5 minutes, no, like, I can't. Like, I've not, it's life, like, just gotta live, like, the destiny of the moment, or what you can, if you're attuned, you can feel a little bit like, oh, okay, this is sort of a fated thing. If you're really, really disconnected from yourself, you might not be able to sense the importance of the peak periods. And sometimes, I will say, like, I've gotten used to, like, tuning into this. So at first, I had assumptions about what was important in my life. And through observing the Zodiacal Releasing, I realized I was wrong. Okay? So, like, I realized through observations that in peak periods from fortune, so in my personal life, what was always happening was I was discovering, like, very powerful but, like, rare aspects of, like, astrology, human design, or numerology. Like, or sometimes medicine. That is a whole other thing that we don't talk about here, but that is of huge and tremendous importance in my life if you back engineer these periods. So, I mean, I've been waiting a long time for something to come from all that, and so far it hasn't, but if you look at, like, what happens during the peak periods, then we are on the verge, okay? But anyway, so, like, observing this and seeing, like, taking a step back and looking at, okay, we're in a peak period, what happened, shows me what is the life building towards, what is the greater destiny, this and that. But so during, like, build up periods, I try to prepare. And during peak periods, like, if you're gonna push towards something, like, there's something you wanted to create, there's a goal that you've been working towards, and that's the due time. That's put in your all and do it. No, like, especially if opportunity comes knocking, okay? Peak period. So give it your all. This is my personal opinion. Like, I really, 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 really believe in self-care and, like, healthy routines and healthy diet and good sleep. But, like, during the peak period, that's when it's the best time. Like, get an extra espresso, even if it's midnight, and stay up and write your book, or, like, whatever it is for you. That's probably only relevant for, like, Mercury ruled people, but whatever it is that you're drawn and driven to do it during the peak period. That's where you sacrifice anything non-essential and do what life is giving you to the very best of your ability. And like I said, there can be positive opportunities, neutral opportunities, negative things. It's just things happen. And I don't know, personally, I try to meet life with as much heart and soul as I possibly can. I find, for example, so every day I do readings. So I find, for example, the readings of greatest impact and importance often occur during peak periods. But that's only obvious in retrospect. Like, when I look back, and then it's like, whoa, that's when I did the first session for, like, this client or something like that. And then I either hear from them the tremendous impact that had toward their destiny, or, like, I see, oh my gosh, that became, like, the most important client, or, like, whatever else. So it's these turning points, these forks in the road, these major decisions that we may not realize are major at the time, these people that come into our lives we may not realize at the time that they are life-changing individuals, like, that tends to occur during peak periods. So I just try to be as, like, present for what is happening during peak periods. But like I said, I've gotten so, I think I should give myself a little bit more credit, because I tell myself always, like, ugh, this is disgusting. Like, I need to, like, master these methods better and figure out how to better attune to these periods. But I think I've gotten, like, pretty good at preparing for the peak periods, because like I said, at first, like, when I learned this method, I was totally overwhelmed, overstimulated, and just during the peak periods. But now, like, I've, like, sometimes free up so much that I actually get to sit sometimes for a few minutes and, like, just, like, be during the peak period. So that's actually a sign that I've progressed, like, in terms of following these. But yeah, so I recommend, like, if you're just getting started, just observe the cycles. So during the cool down periods, give yourself a little bit of grace, take it easy, like, you know, go live slowly. During build-up periods, prepare for important activities to occur. So I'm talking right now about level 4, like level 4, if you're looking at your calculator. If you're in a build time, think, and you can't always predict it, but as much as you can, think, what am I building towards? What can I do to prepare behind the scenes? And during peak periods, meet the demands that respond fully. It depends. I'm thinking, what kind of human design person are you? Most people are generators. Respond fully to what life brings your way. If you're a projector, accept the invitations. The invitations will come during the peak periods. If you're a manifester, initiate and inform your mother. Like, inform and initiate. If you are a manifester during the peak periods, that's when you inform of what you're going to do, what you're putting out there. Oh, that was so terrible. Manifester anger. Like, oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, I need to stop. This video too long. It's too long. But oh my gosh, that's a whole nother thing. I've advanced a lot during my most recent peak period. I listened to 40 hours of human design conversation from experts that just talking amongst themselves. And I learned a lot. And manifestors are intense. I like manifestors for sure, but only in the morning, because like it's too much like energy in the evening. But I love projectors, and actually projectors, I've not talked about projectors at all on this channel. But yeah, my mom is one, so that might be why like I have a special love. But I want to produce more content about projectors very soon. Such a rich journey. And of course I love generators. Everyone does. Like, oh my God. Is that like a weird thing to say? But like everyone does, because like everyone's a generator. Do you get what I mean? So like if you love anybody, you know, like if you have friends or family, like you probably love generators, because like almost everyone is. Oh, the reflector. I have nothing to say about reflectors, because as far as I know, I do know one in a very distant way, but if you're a reflector out there, send me a message. Like, yeah, no, I don't know any reflectors personally. They're another otherworldly kind of being, but they're very rare. So anyway, so follow your strategy and authority. You guys, how funny, oh my gosh. I knew it was gonna happen. My battery overheated and it just shut off. So we're done. Like, follow your strategy and authority for maximal success during peak periods and all periods. By the way, I'm going to try putting music in this video. One of you said, I've had a lot of you tell me you hate the music, but one of you asked for it. So we're gonna try it with music and see if you like it. Thank you guys so much for watching these uncut videos. You're amazing. Have a great day. Many blessings and namaste.